Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. As always, I'm joined by my trusted sidekick, Jacob Klucas, a complete pain in my ass, and Matthew Spencer. And for the first time since the first episode, we have my friend and our baseball expert, DJ Miller, back on the show. And I would ask how you all are doing, but I'm about 99% sure that every single one of us is doing better than Pirates pitcher Derek Holland right now. I got this update before the show started, and the Tigers just ripped about 4 piss missiles in the first 5 at-bats off this dude. I'm like, you just can't imagine starting a game any worse. And ironically, since we're starting the show off with baseball, this is exactly why DJ's on the show today, because this man is challenging one of the most popular beliefs in baseball, that Pete Rose, that many believe is the best contact hitter of all time. But DJ, former track star and all, not so fast. DJ, you have the floor.
Oh, so I'm going to get to go first. All right. So basically what I'm going to tell you is Pete Rose just can't reach Ichiro's level of greatness in the simple fact. Before I get into the stats and everything, let me just put it in perspective. Pete Rose played he played for 63 to 1986. Long stretch, great 24 years. Yeah, 24 years of baseball. He's phenomenal. He is he's number 2 in the contact hitter in my opinion. He's number 2. Now, when you look at Ichiro compared to him, and you go from the 60s and 80s to the 2000s when Ichiro was playing, 2000s to 2019 when he finally quit playing. The three biggest differences you got are the infield shift and outfield shift, which makes a huge difference, especially for lefties and contact hitters, people who hit ground balls and low line drives. Makes a huge difference. The pitching, number 2, the pitching is so much better now because of the way the relief pitcher position has been revolutionized and what the relief pitcher does now. Instead of people going in and pitching 7-8 innings every game, you got people now pitching after 4 or 5. If they're done, they're done, and we'll bring in another relief pitcher. He can be on. He can pitch in for the next 3 innings, and then someone close the game out in the last inning. So you can see 3 to 4 pitches in a game. You could have 4 at bats and all face 4 different pitchers in a game now, unlike what it used to be. And then now I'm going to get into the actual stats of it. So in a 10-year stretch, Ichiro's first 10 years, in the first decade of any player, he has the most hits in the first 10 years of their career. He has the most hits, and that is 2,244 hits. That's the most hits. And if you go and look at Pete Rose's
most, DJ, is it the most?
It's the most. If you go to Pete Rose's best 10-year stretch was 65 to 74 with hits, and you go to that, he only had 2,028. That's a whole nother season. Ichiro basically, he would have had to have a whole nother season and an all-star, almost MVP level season just to reach the hits. And then you go into, that's just in 10 years. And then the career batting average, Ichiro has the edge there at 311 to Pete Rose's 303. Pete Rose has the edge in on-base percentage and slugging percentage and OPS as well because of the on-base and slugging percentage. So he has the edge there on him.
Wait a minute, what?
Pete Rose has edge on OPS.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. And then when you want to look at the major accomplishments, Pete Rose has the number 1 accomplishment of when it comes to a contact hitter, having the most hits ever. But then when you look at it, Pete Rose entered the league, started playing in the league when he was 22. Ichiro Suzuki started playing when he was 27. And not just the fact that, he couldn't get out of the minor league system until he was 27. No, he was over in Japan playing, and then switched over to the MLB at the age of 27 and immediately became MVP, Rookie of the Year, had 242 hits, led the league in hits, led the league in batting average, led the league in stolen bases. And then he came in and set the record for most hits in a season in 2004 with 262 at the age of 30. And that was probably his best season ever, batting average 372. Pete Rose never reached anything like that of batting 372. I think his best batting average is 348. Ichiro had 3 seasons with a better batting average than that. Actually, 4. Yeah, 4 seasons with a better batting average. And then when you go to the list of like actual like hit records, so most hits in a season is Ichiro holding that. Then if you go to the most seasons with 215 hits, Ichiro has 5. Pete Rose only has 3. If you go to most seasons with 200 hits, they're tied with 10. But Ichiro did his 10 consecutively from 2001 to 2010. And mind you, he started playing at 27, like, and didn't reach his peak until 30. I can assume if Ichiro played when he was 22, to when he'd have more hits. He would. He just definitely would. And then when you go to, I'll say, literally in 3 or more hits, so it hits in 3 or more leading the league in hits in 3 or more consecutive seasons. Ichiro has done it the most with 5 straight seasons. I'll say, P-Rose never had 3 consecutive seasons in leading hits. Let's see, what P-Rose did, he did lead the league in hits in 3 different decades of baseball. But when you look at what he did in the 60s, he actually had some great seasons. And then if you go in the 70s, he still had some great seasons. But in the 80s, he actually never really had a great season. He was basically still getting all-stars at the age of 40 just off of name alone, and because he led the league in 140 hits. And then the next year he was all-star with 172 hits and batting 271. He had multiple all-stars when he wasn't even batting 300. He was an all-star multiple times off of that. Ichiro, anytime he was an all-star, he was batting over 300, over 350, 310 was the lowest he ever had, and still made the all-stars. And then still had seasons where he was batting 290, 280, just like Pete Rose was, and he was not getting anywhere near an all-star just because of who you look at as in the MLB at the time. So who Ichiro's competing against much better pitchers, much better hitters throughout his whole career. And then you get into, all right, like an average of, let's see, Ichiro averaged 189 hits per season to P Rose's 194. Yeah, P Rose actually did edge him in that. And this is where I'm gonna give P Rose major props. His total bases is much better than Ichiro's. That means he was hitting a lot better he was hitting more doubles, and he actually led the league in doubles 5 or 6 times. 5 times. He actually led the league in doubles. Ichiro never did anything like that. Yes, and RBIs. He was a much better power hitter. Ichiro is very much so a slap hitter and only slaps the ball. And Pete Rose actually stood on the plate and actually took a full cut every time. So it's that I will give him major props on that. But then
more runs.
Neither of them were great home run hitters. I'm not giving him.
No. Pete Rose had more runs.
Home runs.
Yeah. Oh, more runs
per 162.
Yeah, he did.
Which I was actually surprised about, but I guess that goes back to the Mariners didn't have the best staff around Ichiro when he was there.
That's kind of almost needed a team stat. He never really had much people hitting right behind him. And then, so I mean, that's pretty much why I think Ichiro is much better, and the fact in hitting that he's got way more like season accomplishments. And if you think about him joining the league at his prime and being coming into the league at an MVP level, shows that he could have been playing already and he just wasn't. And even if you count in the Japan League stats with his MLB stats, he has more hits. And I think the Japan League only plays like 90 games or so. So to me, that means a lot. If you're going to still actually lead, like you still would actually have more hits and you played less games. Oh, no, sorry, it's a 130-game season. Yeah, it's 130 games. So he's missing out on 30. Like, he was playing there since he was 18, right out of high school. Ichiro's just a phenom.
Real quick, because I don't have access to a calculator, and I'm actually being serious about this. Somebody do 189 times 5 for me.
I got you.
Just for statistical purposes here.
189 times 5. 9:45.
Thank you. All right, y'all can continue. I appreciate that.
Now I'm kind of wanting to know what's going on.
I'll say, no, I was done with my points.
Yes, Klucas. So please elaborate.
So hold on, you'll see where I'm going with this here in a second.
I would like to add though that the infield shift started with Ted Williams. So
Actually, no, the infield shift started with David Ortiz.
Well, it started with in the 1920s, and then they used it against Ted Williams. But
look at you getting stumped, DJ.
I saw it against David Ortiz was the first time they really implemented the shift like that.
It's become more popular in recent years, but they actually have been doing it since the 1920s.
Pete Rose did not face a shift. Don't tell me that.
The reason why
come on, you can't say that.
The reason why I asked what.
Not only that, but Pete
Hold
Rose
on, Spencer. I want to hear what Klucas is saying.
Hold on. Pete Rose slapped it all over the place, though. So he found the gaps really well.
So
he did.
Reason why I asked 189 times 5. So you said Pete Rose started playing baseball at the age of 22, correct?
He started playing MLB at the age of 22, correct?
Okay. Ichiro started at 27, correct? So that's a 5-year difference between Pete Rose and Ichiro, correct?
Right.
You said Ichiro averaged 189 hits per season, correct?
I know what you're going with this, but yeah.
So 189, add the 5 seasons, it still puts Ichiro at 4,034 hits, which is still 200 behind Pete Rose.
Okay, and here's where you're not taking that into real consideration. His last couple of years, Ichiro for hits, in his last few seasons. Let's see what he averaged. Let me go back. His last couple seasons in hits, he had in 2013 136, 102 in 2014, 91, 95, and then 50, and then 9, and then 20 in 2018 and none in 2019. So that right there destroyed his average per season. Don't give me that.
Whose fault is that?
That's not a fault on Pete Rose.
No, but I'm just saying, if he had those 5 years, he's not getting 189 hits.
Okay, if he had those 5 years, okay, and if Pete Rose had an extra 5 years to play, if Pete Rose has an extra 5 years to play at 190 hits per season, yeah, nobody's coming close to his record, just like nobody's going to come close to his record now. Come on now. This whole perception of longevity. Longevity hurts somebody. Oh, they played this long, so of course longevity does not affect somebody. I'm sorry.
Their career numbers. That's what I'm saying. His career numbers. He had 5 more years, and because
Pete Rose.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree because I think longevity does affect your legacy. Absolutely. I think it says more for a player if they're able to play longer than to dominate.
If you're able to put
they both played till 45, but they didn't start at 22 each. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. You can't take.
If you're able to put up the same type of numbers as somebody,
still great.
If you are able to put up the same type of numbers, the same, not 1,000 off, not 1,200 off. If you're able to put up the same numbers in a shorter period of time, okay, longevity plays a part. But when you're 1,200 off, I'm not giving you longevity on that.
5 years in 10 years.
5 years, and I just gave you the statistic of if he had that 5 extra years, it's not going to matter.
No, that's not the same. That's not the same.
Still 200 off.
That's not the same. No, it's not. Those are prime years. Those aren't end years.
Those are 200 off.
Where you're bad now? That's when he was good.
And go look at Pete Rose's last 5 years.
I'm not talking about
5 years.
I'm talking about how
I'm just saying you cannot give me an excuse of it declined. He went down because he didn't play. I'm sorry. That's not Pete Rose's fault.
In 2013, and that was his last.
It's not Pete Rose's fault that he was not injured his last couple of years.
No, and I know that, but I'm saying if you give each of those first 5 years, he has more hits than him. That's what you don't.
I'm quite enjoying this.
It would.
He has more. He had the Japan stats. That's what I'm telling you.
But then you can add in the minor league stats, and I don't know. Pete Rose does have average more hits per 162 than Ichiro.
Because of those last couple of years. If you go to their top 10, their best 10 years. 10 years.
We're talking about an average of 303 to 311.
If we're going,
no, but that's
hold
per
on.
162. That's per 162.
Hold on. If we're going,
that's a totality of a career. So he had a lot of prime years in there as well. But I mean, Ichiro had a better batting average, but Pete Rose got the second base better.
if we're
What do you want?
here's another thing too. If we're going to talk about the best 10-year stretch of a baseball player, then Albert Pujols is the greatest hitter of all time.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about right now. We're talking about
That was what you just. Is that or is that not what you just said? Like we're talking the best 10-year stretch.
He never had as many hits. He never had 2002.
But you're comparing a 10-year stretch, right?
No, I'm saying that 10-year stretch, 2,244 hits. Pete Rose never had anything like that. Pete Rose would have needed an 11 to 12 years to hit something like that. You got to take 11 to 12 years for Pete Rose to get to match Ichiro's decade.
And if we're gonna base
162 games.
If we're gonna base an entire career off of a best 10-year stretch, then Albert Pujols is the best hitter of all time. Because
I'm not
no other hitter.
I'm saying in his prime. That's his prime, 27 to 36. You could call that Ichiro's prime. He showed up at his prime. Pete Rose didn't show up at his prime. He got to play into it. He had years before. Ichiro never had the years before on the MLB side. He didn't have those numbers to keep up with those career numbers. He's missing 5 years in the beginning. That's like someone playing all 4 years of college, and then because Jacob's about to freak out. Let's like say someone has 4 years of college, and then someone didn't have 4 years of college, and they have similar numbers. And it's like this when you look at the career and total numbers.
I got a feeling, Les, you're about to say the same thing I am. So go ahead.
Are you talking that Jordan played in college versus LeBron?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
Klucas now.
I know. No. You looked like right before he had even said anything about the 4 years of college crap. You looked like you were about to say the same. Go ahead, because I'm wanting to see if you're going to say the same thing I am.
Which is what? No, that was.
You look like you were about to say something. No, I wasn't talking about that. You can't. You're talking about somebody playing. You're talking about somebody that was playing like Spencer said. Pete Rose played minor league. You're not including minor league stats compared to professional baseball in Japan. It's essentially almost the same. It's almost essentially the same damn thing when you're talking about competition-wise, almost for the most part. So, I mean, you can't give me that Ichiro didn't get to play into it. Ichiro is playing professionally still, even over in Japan.
No, I'm saying he could have, if he was in the minor league system, Ichiro would have been up. He would have been up playing pro by the time he was 20.
He could have.
And then now we're looking at Ichiro 26 years versus.
So yeah, why wasn't he? Why in that 5 year span, if he was so great in Japan, was he not getting calls earlier?
Why don't you think?
Probably because I would have to, just to be fair, probably because he was under contract with the Japan Professional League team. Just going to be fair because that happens a lot. You know, that happened with Giannis with his Greek professional team.
Ricky Rubio was another one.
Mm-hmm. So just to be fair.
So I'm sorry. I'm not buying into the fact of that Ichiro's a better hitter than Pete Rose when it's not true at all.
It's a push, isn't it?
If we're talking about strictly contact hitting, nobody's better than Pete Rose.
You know, based on, what DJ's argument, what I'm willing to say is that maybe at Ichiro at his best was better than Pete Rose at his best.
By far. It's not close.
Come on now.
We're talking career for career, longevity, everything. I have to give the edge.
Hold on. Les,
you cannot say by far, though.
I know. Are you talking DJ?
Let's just be honest, okay? You can't say by far like it's not even close. It's close while we're having a debate.
No, it's not close.
Yes.
Look up Ichiro's best year, 2004. Look that up. Look those stats up, man.
I'm looking at them right now, and I'm going to take what I'm trying to do.
Batted 372.
So we're talking about one season?
One season.
Take one season.
372? Come on, man.
So Ted Williams is better than Ichiro? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, if we're going by one season.
He played in the 20s, bro. Black people weren't even playing there.
Come on now. He did not play in the 20s.
Ted Williams play in the 20s?
Not in the 20s, bud.
40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
40s, 50s also black people just getting in there. And they were terrible in the 40s and 50s. They were terrible people. They were terrible players. They could not make it in today's league.
Oh, they were
couldn't get
terrible
played.
people? Like, I don't know any of them personally. They're not alive.
Okay, you know what I mean. And some of them, yes, they were. A lot of them, actually, yes, were terrible people.
I heard Babe Ruth was a terrible person, but you know
He
what? He
was a
liked to
terrible
drink and smoke cigars and chew tobacco, and
The
was
great
was
Bambino.
was a great ladies' man. In which for a guy a guy with his physique, I'm quite impressed.
Do you want to call 73, or do you want to say? Or do you want to say 69 was his best season, 1969 or 1973?
Well, I mean, we keep on jumping around. I thought we were talking about a 10-year stretch.
Yeah,
now it's just 1 year.
Close. There's no 10-year stretch where Pete Rose even competes.
I mean, the hits are pretty close, man.
No, there's nowhere that's close.
Ichiro probably has
200 more hits.
No,
than anything.
Less than 50.
No, look at it. Look at it.
From Pete Rose when he was 27 to when he was 36, 10 seasons. And then you look at Ichiro from 27 to 36. Yeah, Ichiro has more hits, but it's not
about 200.
Not by 200. Man.
Look at it. Okay, his from when he was 27 to when he was 36, he has 267 hits. Ichiro has 224. No, 2,224. 244. So almost. He's like 180 hits more. That's a whole season's worth.
I mean,
a whole nother season's worth of hitting. He's got that many more hits. That is beyond impressive.
Another thing that you always have to
on base percentage, though. I mean,
all right,
and that comes into play, and
you gotta let Spencer dive into these stats a little bit before he starts.
Spencer is the statistician here.
Because somewhere, even in the fine print, Spencer's about to find a stat, and it's about to blow everything out into left field.
DJ, I warned you pre-show. When you said that you had this argument won, and I said there is one thing that you are not accounting for, and that is that we have a Spencer.
I mean,
he's about to pull a stat out of left field here.
Ichiro probably plays at least 15 to 20 more games in that 10-year stretch.
Wait, is that it?
I mean, Ichiro has more 200 hit seasons. Yeah, he does.
No, he didn't. In that 10 years, he says 100.
From 27 to 36. 27
yeah,
to 36.
they both average 159 games.
Are you going off at the end? His entire career?
No. I'm going by like that 10-year stretch. They both average 159 games. Oh,
so how many hits? How many hits?
He averages more plate appearances too. Like so, I mean.
So how many hits?
Man, what are we talking about? Oh man. 318 batting average is 331. Jesus Christ.
So, okay, at the end of the day, I give Ichiro 4 more points on his career batting average, brings it to 315. Pete Rose for his career was a 304, 303. So 12 points better there, but on base percentage, slugging percentage, RBIs, runs, total bases, Pete Rose beats him.
He does.
So,
but I'm saying
that's initially what I said. That's initially what I said when we first started. Yeah, Ichiro probably has better contact on the ball than Pete Rose before I even look at the stats, but I already know that Pete Rose is a better player.
No, player all around?
I would say
no, not even close.
Overall player, I would have to disagree with that as well. And I think Ichiro.
No, it's not close.
I would say I think Ichiro is a better base runner. I think Ichiro is better in the field. And what I was about to say, before Spencer went into his, his statistician mode, what I was about to say, another thing you got to look at when players, when you defining a player's legacy is how much they impact a game, what all they leave. Ichiro, in my opinion, was more impactful, at least for players of an Asian descent to come over to MLB and play baseball. So, from the impact standpoint, I don't think it's close between Ichiro and Rose. But if we're talking strictly who's a better hitter, I'm sorry, I got to go Pete Rose. It's me. But I think Ichiro's a better player.
Has 2 Gold Gloves, and then to Ichiro's 10. I just wanted to say that.
he just wanted to throw the shade in there.
I just wanted to throw that in there. That is nowhere close. That is nowhere close. If you want to go to Silver Sluggers as well, also Ichiro has 3 Silver Sluggers. Pete Rose has 1. And a tougher time to pitch, and like in a tougher pitching. Oh. I'm just saying, man. Come on now.
It's debatable.
Debatable. 2000s, you think from 2000 to 2020, you think the pitchers from the 60s and 80s compare?
There's no metric for it.
Here comes the technical side of Spencer.
Yeah, here we go.
There's no metric for it.
Look at the video.
When they talk about
the video of the pitch, you seen breaking balls, right? Have you seen the evolution of breaking balls, right?
It's funny because like I talk to people who play basketball, and they make this argument too. And while I will say that basketball players today are better athletes as a whole, they got better nutrition, there's more science behind it. I would have to argue that the guys in the 70s and the 80s have better basketball skill because they practiced, they practiced and played a lot more than athletes today.
Were we talking skill?
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. They played more?
I'm so confused. What?
Yep, they played more.
They practiced and played more in the 70s?
Skill. Like, two different arguments for one.
I'm gonna get back to this skill part. You're telling me in today's modern era, between high school, AAU, and everything, they played and practiced more in the 70s and 80s than they do now?
Absolutely, they do.
Oh my God! Spencer,
what metric do you have to prove that?
It's obvious. They don't have any cell phones. They don't have a PlayStation. They don't have mass TV. You don't have mass.
Are you
TV
talking about legitimate? Are you talking about legitimate games or playground games now?
Like playground games, like when you go to the summer.
Okay, that's
and
fair.
you play.
Okay, that's
when you go to the summer.
Like legitimate games. This is
when you go to the summer and you play, and you develop skills, and you play together as a team. Definitely better in the 70s and 80s.
I'm going to argue the skill thing because you look at how much more versatile players are nowadays. I mean, how many?
It's athleticism. It's athleticism.
That's not athleticism. Okay, being 7 foot, being able to handle the ball and shoot like a guard is not athleticism.
Exactly.
That's skill.
That is skill. That is what skill is. I mean, at least in my opinion, that's what skill is. I mean, I'm watching. I have the Utah versus Denver game in the background right now, and I'm looking at Nikola Jokic. There were no guys that were as 7-footers with his type of skill set playing in the 70s and 80s.
Joe Ingles. Ain't nobody from the 70s and 80s starting like that.
Okay, stop it.
Everybody, first of all, Joe Ingles, you could drop in any era of basketball and he would fit perfectly.
Okay, I just want to also Spencer, you're gonna appreciate this.
Joe Ingles ain't starting on a playoff team like that.
Spencer, you're gonna appreciate this one. DJ is the same person that tried to tell me that Boban Bogdanovic is a better shooter than Drazen Petrovic.
You youngin'.
It's exactly what I said.
No.
First of all, Drazen Petrovic has been given the green light from Reggie Miller that he is the best shooter he's ever seen.
Hey, and to be fair,
Petrovic gave Jordan a 40 ball.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't really know who that guy was.
I sent you the video.
It's wrong skin color.
Drazen Petrovic had the ultimate clip on him.
I didn't know who that was.
Okay, so why would you say, if you don't know who somebody is, why would you say Boban Bogdanovic is a better shooter?
It's out of context, because I didn't say he's better. I said, is he really a better shooter than Boban?
You know, I just want to know why. Hold on, I want to know why you said Boban specifically.
And I didn't know who that guy was, so I didn't pick him. He's like, how come you didn't pick him? And
I want to know why you specifically picked Boban. If you could have said Klay Thompson's a better shooter than Drazen. Because some people could have been like, oh, okay, maybe,
It was European, pick, who you want, and
So that was your first European you picked?
No, he's not the first. Not even close.
No.
He's the last $1 person I picked.
You could have said Peja Stojakovic, and I would have said, oh, maybe it's a possibility.
He was $1. They were both $1, and I picked Boban. And he was like, "Why would you pick Boban? Why would you not get whatever his name was?" And
I said the fact that Drazen is at $1 is an absolute steal.
Well,
and I said, "Sure, I don't know who that is. I did not know who that was." So to fault me for that, that's not my fault.
I mean, okay, let's be real. Though. I mean, Drazen Petrovic was good. God rest his soul. Was good. It was a great shooter, but let's not act like he was some all-star, game-changing level player. So
I don't know about all that. I think he was. He kind of was. When he finally got his opportunity with the Nets, they started making the playoffs. So yeah, he definitely was a game changer. This is the same guy that
I'm talking about a game changer in terms of like changing the game, like league-wide changing.
Okay, I mean, well, the
you got the wolf outside your door again?
Yes, there's a wolf outside. No, not anymore. No, it was somebody. No, just somebody walking up pretty close to my door. But no, anyways. But the game-changing argument as far as actually changing the game. I mean, let me ask you this: who changed the game more, Steph Curry or LeBron?
Oh, by far
Steph Curry.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that. But who's the better player?
LeBron.
Point proven.
I'm confused on what point you just proved.
Because you changed the game doesn't mean you're not as.
Who are you
just
talking
because
about?
somebody changed the game more doesn't mean that they're necessarily better. That was my.
So
point.
the game was changing anyways.
Huh?
Who are you talking about?
With the restricted area. There wasn't a restricted area until 2003 or 2001.
Because
but the game was changing.
Well, who are you talking about?
Are you talking to me or Spencer?
Hold on.
There wasn't a restricted area, and there wasn't a defensive violation.
Okay,
until 2001. So the game was changing anyway.
The restricted area changed the game, yes.
And the defensive violation.
And yes, was teams already starting to shoot the three ball more than usual, per usual. Yes. Steph Curry single-handedly changed the game of basketball. You can't tell me anywhere. You can't tell me any different. And when Steph Curry broke out,
he did it better than
game against the Knicks.
He did it better than anybody else.
When he had the breakout game versus New York and dropped 50 in Madison Square Garden, from that point forward, if you did not have lethal shooters on your team, you had a 0% chance to win.
There became the progression of being a focus towards perimeter shooting just skyrocketed with Steph Curry.
The myth from that point forward, from the myth of you can't win a championship with three ball shooters disappeared.
Exactly.
Hey guys, that's all the time I have for the podcast today.
All right, DJ, thank you for coming on. And hold on, before you head out, I just want to take this opportunity to ask to kind of interact with the fans. And I'm going to post on the Twitter page, ask a question: who won this debate? Did DJ win with the fact that Ichiro is the better hitter than Pete Rose, or did any three of us win with the fact that Pete Rose is the better contact hitter than Ichiro? So please let us know later. But DJ, as always, thank you for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me. Anytime you guys want to talk about baseball, I'm always here, man.
We got you.
All right. I'll see you guys.
See you, bud.
How do I leave?
Oh, my God.
Oh, wait, here we go. Leave.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my
gosh.
Here.
He's still here. All right.
Jesus.
I can't believe he actually said, do I know what a breaking ball is? Of course I know what a breaking ball is.
No, he was he asked you if you knew the ball. No, he's asked if you've seen the evolution of the breaking ball is what he was asking. Yeah, yes, everyone. I would assume everyone in this group chat knows what this group knows what a breaking ball
though. Sick
Did
breaking ball. Mm-hmm.
Were you Clayton Kershaw before Clayton Kershaw came out?
He's
I had a 2-8 slider in the low 80s, and my fastball was 87. So 2-8 break.
But anyways, transitioning, and I'm going to take this time to step into the recruiting portion of the podcast, and I'm going to say that I think all three of our teams benefited from the recruiting bubble this week on the football side of it. I'm going to start with Spencer. Obviously, the Hurricanes took a big blow earlier in the week when one of the best returning pass rushers in college football, Greg Rousseau, right? Rousseau decided to opt out of the 2020 season. But a day later, 5-star, number 27 ranked player in the class of 2021, Leonard Taylor, who 24/7 has compared him to New York Jets defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, has decided to commit to the Hurricanes. So definitely a big thing there. But Spencer, this is the part that what really made me think of you this week. I looked up the Hurricanes 2021 recruiting class. They're ranked 8th overall. They have 21 total recruits right now. Guess how many of them are from that South Florida area?
A lot, probably at least 3/4 of them.
Oh, a lot more, bud. 19 out of the 21.
Doesn't surprise me.
And given your knowledge of Hurricane football, how much success do you think that will lead going forward for the Canes?
Well, I mean, I've always been under the impression for at least the last 15 years that Miami is always one season away. You just need a coach who can recruit well. So there's so much talent down there in South Florida that it's just incredible how much talent's down there. Comments have been made in the past that if Miami could get the best players south of Orlando, they would never lose another game. Jeremy Shockey made that. And for a couple of years there, when they were pretty much unbeatable. It's kind of, but they've been going to the SEC schools. Articles have been written on Saturday down south. It says the worst case scenario for the SEC schools is for Miami to get a good football coach, a good recruiter, because it just completely stops the pipeline. And so you're seeing that, Manny Diaz has that. He has a little bit of that bravado. He's from the Miami area. His father was a mayor at one point. Recruiting classes are getting a little bit better, but I'm going to go out on a leg and say that Miami's recruiting classes have never been bad. Mm-hmm. The coaching staffs have been bad, and they've been missing really that one quarterback. There's always a quarterback carousel. There's a lot of hype behind the quarterbacks that we get, and then, they don't really pan out. And coaching staff has underdeveloped a lot of talent that has gone on to the NFL and done successful things. Doesn't surprise me that Miami can get that talent, but, can the coaching staff develop?
So I got to ask you this. Are you a believer in Manny Diaz?
Don't know. I certainly like his energy.
That's
I do
fair.
like his energy, and I think it attracts. So, but there's time will tell. Time will tell. You definitely need talent. You definitely need depth. Miami has lacked depth. Where Clemson and Ohio State and Alabama, they got a guy right behind another guy, and they got a guy right behind that guy, so they can go 2 or 3 deep, where Miami in the past couple of years, they've only been able to go 1 deep, and then there's a drop-off. So that's really what separates programs, and that's the reason why you saw so many NFL athletes coming out of Miami in the early 2000s and when they were really good. So, Alabama and Clemson and, those schools the last couple of years have been able to do that, last decade really. So
it's amazing how certain universities in certain areas are just right in the backyard of these recruiting hotspots. I graduated from, I have an IU degree, and that was always the topic up there, is that the state of Indiana has such great basketball talent coming out of it year in and year out. And if the Hoosier coaching staff would just recruit more in-state players and get the top players from their own backyard, they would continue to dominate. And that's always, and from conversations I've had with you in the past, that's always been your thing with Miami, is getting those South Florida players to stay home and not go to those SEC schools.
Well, Indy's a great pool. So is Chicago. So the fact that they can't get out of those 2 cities, it's a problem.
Exactly. But while we're sticking on the topic of South Florida recruits, This comes into my good recruiting news, and that Texas, literally hours before the show, just got a commitment from 2021 three-star receiver Jaden Alexis, who is heading into his senior year, is already running a 4.41 40 time, described as a very shifty, very good speed with the comparison of Christian Kirk. So I just wanted to rub that in for Spencer that we did take a South Florida recruit.
There's too many of them down there. Can't get them all. So
I'm just hoping he gets that.
Try to get the 5 and 4 stars. Hope they don't go anywhere else.
I really like to see that South Florida speed in the Texas offense. But transitioning, Klucas, I'm sure you've heard the news about Kentucky's football team and some very notable names that have transferred to the Wildcats.
Yep, both of Ray Lewis's sons committed to transfer to Kentucky. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know a whole lot about them. So I'm just hoping. What I will say, and I think most people have agreed recently about Kentucky football, is that what they're doing may not always equal to the wins in terms of having the consistent 8, 9, 10 win seasons. More recently, it has been that way. But the one thing Kentucky has been able to do through the Stoops era is they've been able to develop players, especially on the defensive side of the football. So I'm excited to see if we can maybe develop these guys, and maybe we can find ourselves another Bud Dupree, another Josh Allen in the making.
I'll say, well, they are transferring as walk-ons. So, I guess, yeah. So that's kind of where you're going with that Bud Dupree, Josh Allen comparison. Yeah, so they are both receivers. And, they're related to Ray Lewis, so I'm sure there's some real killers.
They've got to have if you're a son of Ray Lewis, you got to have that dog in you at least. So I'm praying that maybe we could see that dog eventually get unleashed at some point.
All right, I think that's wrapping up the recruiting section for today. But Klucas, I was telling us pre-show that there's a topic he wants to talk about. So I'm going to let you have the floor.
All right, so. This, as Spencer tried to pull out of me before the show started, and I would not give it up. The only thing I would give up is this has to do with the college and NBA news. A little bit of both. So, as you all know, Tom Thibodeau was named the head coach of the New York Knicks. Will be the head coach next year. The remaining story of that is filling out the rest of the coaching staff for Tom Thibodeau. And the number one name that has came up as the top assistant that the Knicks want and that Tom Thibodeau wants is Kenny Payne. Mm-hmm. From my sources that I have close to UK that follow a lot of UK, that have a lot of UK inside and everything, from what I'm being told, that Kenny Payne is going to eventually take the job by the end of the week to the Knicks. He's going to take the job, and from my understanding, is that what's to follow with the Knicks after Kenny Payne is that the Knicks are going to pursue Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker, and they have a very good feeling with landing Kenny Payne that they're going to land both those guys because both of them have such a great relationship with Kenny Payne, and it's going to make them want to play in New York. So again, now we all know Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns are still under contract with both their teams, so obviously they would have to trade for those guys. So what kind of trade package you could put together with the Knicks roster they have now, I'm not really sure. I'm sure you could maybe swing an R.J. Barrett type deal for a Devin Booker.
That's exactly where I think was going to happen. So I think that's the move that would have to be made.
You could probably swing something like that. Now, as far as swinging something to get Karl Anthony Towns, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You're probably going to have to throw about 7 first-round draft picks, close to a Paul George-like deal in that trade. Especially, and that my biggest question is, I know Cat's kind of a little bit unhappy in Minnesota. I know he got a little bit more happier about being there after one of his best buddies, D'Lo, got traded there. So now that becomes my question: is does Cat really want to leave Minnesota after Minnesota just got D'Angelo Russell? But from my understanding, is that it's going to be Kenny Payne taking the Knicks assistant coach job. And that the Knicks have a strong belief they're going to land Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns. And if you give me 1 second, I actually, as far as, and then, so what I'm reading is that replace Kenny Payne would be Bruiser Flint, who was an assistant with Cal at UMass, is assistant at Indiana right now. So he would be the one to take over as the new assistant coach at Kentucky and take Kenny Payne's spot.
So I have a few things to ask heading into that. One, I just more or less want to point out, if Kenny Payne does indeed take the job in New York, I think the ideal situation was that, like you're saying, if they bring in Karl Anthony Towns and they bring in Devin Booker, I think an ideal situation would be to keep Kevin Knox and Julius Randle on the team as well, because they already, given that their Kentucky backgrounds, they have experience with Payne, and it'll just make a transition a lot smoother. Now comes my question that I'm going to ask you. Kenny Payne does take this job. Are the Knicks better for it, or is Kentucky worse?
I think at the end of the day, it's Kentucky's still going to get their guys. I know Kenny Payne plays such a huge role in the recruiting for Kentucky. But I think Kentucky will be fine in terms of recruiting. I think the Knicks are definitely going to get better because I do believe whether they end up with both or just one, when you get a guy like that, now you get a Devin Booker and you're showing that you're wanting – if you get a Devin Booker, if you get one of these guys, you're showing that you're wanting to make those steps going forward. Now maybe guys are willing in free agency. You get a Devin Booker now, maybe this time next year, now maybe Giannis is considering going to the Knicks. Or you get a guy like maybe even another Kentucky guy that's a free agent this year, Anthony Davis would maybe start to consider the Knicks if Kenny Payne takes the job. I think it opens the door a little bit more as the Knicks are already a big market team. A lot of players consider going to the Knicks already going into free agency. You get a guy like this and you're showing that you're willing to pursue for trades like this and that you're going to go hard at it. It's going to open up the door for a lot of different scenarios for them.
And given that Kentucky does have the most players in the pros currently of any college, getting a Kentucky assistant definitely is going to, alluded to your point, is going to get a lot of these players to want to come and play for New York. But my thing is with Kenny Payne, where I think Kentucky is going to be the most impacted from his departure is one thing that stands out from Kenny Payne is not just the recruiting end. It's how he's been able to work with the bigs that come in through Kentucky. You saw Karl Anthony Towns, which I was very high on Karl Anthony Towns when he was recruited, but for whatever reason, a lot of people weren't. But you watched, his progression. You watched DeMarcus Cousins' progression and all the bigs that come through Kentucky and
the biggest progression. Most
of them improved their draft stock as well. And I think Kenny Payne plays a large role into that.
And he does. And with guys like Cousins and Towns, like you said, they were already uber talented coming out of high school. So, yes, Kenny Payne tremendously helped them develop their skill set better. But the biggest progression that Kenny Payne can hold his hat on into making him what he is today and making him a serviceable, starting center in the league, making him the top 10 draft pick he was Willie Cauley-Stein. Willie Cauley-Stein really developed himself from a 4-star center who was playing football and basketball, was just one of those guys that was really good on the defensive end, extremely, extremely raw on the offensive end. And in 3 years at Kentucky, he turned his game completely around and became a top 10 pick. So he comes to mind. And then also Nick Richards this past year comes to mind when you're thinking about big man progression. So I'm not saying it's not going to hurt Kentucky at all. It's definitely going to hurt. But at the same time, when we're talking about recruiting and I think with everything else, I think Kentucky will be fine. I think the Knicks are better because of it, though.
I say if we're talking about recruiting, as a Duke fan, I got a lot of that same thing when Capel took the job at Pittsburgh. But obviously, Duke and Kentucky have such a large brand in the recruiting field that they're gonna get their guys. Well, they're not. Neither one's doing as hot as Michigan State right now. I want to throw that out there, but
between us three, I think as long as Worldwide West is on John Calipari's side, Kentucky will be fine on recruiting.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all. And I think this is the most quiet I've seen Spencer in a while.
Nothing to talk about. Jacob's kind of taking the cake right now, so.
I think he was going to bring up Worldwide West until I brought it up.
No, I forgot what I was going to bring up. There's a couple things I was going to bring up, but it's kind of irrelevant. So
All right, we talked about, we can make an R.J. Barrett trade package for a Devin Booker. So if you're the Knicks, what kind of trade package? If you're saying, like you said, maybe you keep Kevin Knox and Julius Randle because of that Kentucky connection, you keep those two players. What kind of trade package can you actually come up with Karl-Anthony Towns?
For Karl-Anthony Towns specifically?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, maybe you center it around Mitchell Robinson at that point.
I would say
Bunch of draft picks.
I'll say I think you could center it around. You would center it around Mitchell Robinson, definitely, in a bunch of draft picks. Maybe throw in Frank Ntilikina as well.
See, and I think in a trade like that, you would almost have to throw in. First of all, I think you wouldn't have a choice but to throw in Julius Randle to make contracts match up somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in a situation like that, you almost have to give up a guy like Kevin Knox for that potential reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's fair.
I think Mitchell Robinson would 100% be the centerpiece because that way you're replacing your starting center for a starting center. Mitchell Robinson also still does have very high potential. We know he's an elite, defender in the paint already. Very good rebounder.
Athlete.
Still has the potential on the offensive side of the ball.
Elite athlete.
And so you replace that. Like I said, I think you would have to include Julius Randle for the contracts to match up. But outside of that, I think you just have to do that. Maybe you do Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Ntilikina, and a boatload of draft picks. But I wonder how Stephen A. Smith would feel about that.
I don't know. I don't know. I see him going both ways on that.
I don't know. There's nothing good that Stephen A. thinks about the New York Knicks to begin with. They're such a defunct organization as it is. I mean, I don't know.
If you added Devin Booker and a Karl-Anthony Towns, are they a playoff team in the East?
Then I think with me, the question now becomes to defense still. But, I mean, I would assume that's why you bring in a head coach like Thibodeau. But Devin Booker and Karl-Anthony Towns, neither one are really known on the defensive side of the ball. So, to me, it's going to be a very similar situation to what Karl-Anthony Towns has been in Minnesota. They can score all the points in the world, but they can't shut anybody down. I mean, they can't stop anybody. So, it is what it is, man.
So now I know we're just playing 20 questions at this point. So do you go for both of them like Booker and Cat, or do you go for one of them and maybe pray that a Giannis signs with you next year?
I would go with one of them and maybe get another in free agency. I think you could keep more players that you want to keep on your team, and yeah, you don't have to trade as much away, and you can get somebody just to come in. So
if you keep the one, which one are you keeping?
If I keep, what do you mean keep one?
Would you take Booker or would you take Towns as your one?
I would take Booker.
I think if your main target is Giannis, I would say probably Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Booker would play better off of Giannis than a Cat would.
I just see so much.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would say so. I see so much clogging in the paint with both Giannis and Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns can step out and shoot the perimeter, and Giannis is getting better, but I just
want to see Devin Booker get out of Phoenix. I think that he has so much potential, and it's just being wasted in Phoenix.
I don't know. Phoenix is starting to get a little love right now. I mean, they're 4-0, maybe 5-0 in the bubble now.
Yeah, but even if they go undefeated in this bubble, they're probably not going to make the playoffs.
No, but it also arguably builds momentum for next year. One thing I've noticed about
Phoenix is just one of those teams. They're two pieces away, I think, from being a 7-8 seed in that playoff in the West. They need a point guard and they need a power forward.
What I've noticed about Phoenix this year is that when they in certain spurts they can play as good a basketball as anybody, but it's consistently putting it together for enough string of games to make a playoff roster or a playoff spot. Sorry. So that's what I've noticed about Phoenix. But I think they have some very good young pieces. Obviously, they're definitely led by Devin Booker, and then they're
led by Booker and Ayton. And see, and I like Mikal Bridges playing that 3 spot next to Booker, a guy that doesn't command the ball. He's going to play defense. They just need a point guard and a power. They need a stretch power forward, and they need a point guard.
So I guess you're not
can
sold on
play
Rubio?
make. I've never been sold on Ricky Rubio.
I think he's a good facilitator. I think he's a good. I think he's a very quality point guard.
He's one of those point guards where you sit back in free agency and you look at your roster after all the big names have signed, and you say, "Hey, we need a point guard," and that's the guy you go after.
As a Miami
Heat
Heat
fan. Rondo.
Yeah, basically.
As a Heat fan, I wouldn't mind having Ricky Rubio. Maybe we'd average fewer turnovers a game.
So he's just one of those guys that you're like, hey, we need a point guard that's relatively cheap, and can just come in and play point guard for us this year. He just happens to fill that void. I'm sorry, I just had a sour taste in my mouth ever since Ricky Rubio got drafted in front of Steph Curry.
I think we all did. Well, not just Ricky Rubio, but Johnny Flynn as well. Minnesota drafted.
Not only that, watching how Ricky Rubio defended James Harden in the playoffs last year just kind of really.
I'll say I think it's still amazing that the Timberwolves drafted 2 point guards ahead of Steph Curry, and Rubio was
not
decent.
just 2 point guards. Not just 2 point guards. They back-to-back picks. They took point guards.
Was it back-to-back? Because I'm
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure
it
was like 4 and 5, and then Steph went 7 or 6.
I'll look it up right now.
It was either 4 and 5, or they had like 4 and 6. There was like maybe a pick in between.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think there was a pick in between.
Either way, I mean, he took 2 point guards. Now, granted, maybe if you're thinking about it in their way, they knew drafting Rubio, he'd have to be a drafted stash because he was still under contract. But even then, you took Johnny Flynn. You took Johnny Flynn over Steph Curry. I mean, you could have just watched the 2 in college, and you could have saw who was going to be the better player.
I mean, the scouts were not big on Steph Curry. That's something that
they weren't.
They weren't, but you're telling me as a scout you're that much bigger on Johnny Flynn?
They were. Scouts were really high on Johnny Flynn.
It was back to back.
Oh, it was back to back. Okay, I was just about to look.
I'd have fired my whole scouting team immediately after the draft.
Oh, I would have too. It was funny because I remember reading the scouting report on Steph Curry, and even the knocks that were on his game, even back then. I'm not even talking about looking forward to now how he plays now. They were wrong even then, talking about how he wasn't a good passer. No point guard skills.
Wasn't a good passer. Didn't really have that great of ball handling. And I'm like,
are we watching the same guy right now?
I really started to think that they just took he played at a small college. He can't really do it. That's pretty much the road they went down.
It was 2008.
So I don't know. So, but yeah, Kenny Payne, New York. It's but what I'm seeing is by next Friday it'll be official.
Well, we'll definitely be tuned in to see that. So anything else you all want to add?
Spencer, you got anything on your mind?
You need to release any of your built-up anger that you've been feeling this week?
Yeah, since you've been trolling me all week since I tagged you in that one post.
He's been leaving, GIFs on everything.
Just trying to give y'all emotional support. Just trying to give y'all emotional support.
I've really needed it, so I'm really glad.
The first day he did it.
Well, I'm gonna go through every single post. Yeah. I'm just gonna be like, you know what? Right on.
First day he did it, I was like, what is he doing? And then by this next day, I was like, all right, he's doing this shit on purpose because I tagged him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just showing up.
I was like, I remember one day he put 5 GIFs on 5 different posts that I made, all back to back to back to back. And I was like, what the? I'm like, Spencer, really, dude?
Yeah, I woke up to 13 Facebook notifications, and the first one I saw was the post I tagged him in saying that he only shows up when he wants to be negative, he had posted and then all of a sudden I go through
not negative.
Or sorry,
not negative.
And then after that, you just go through my post. Matt Spencer posted a GIF. Matt Spencer posted a GIF. Matt Spencer posted a
Well,
GIF.
to be honest, I never post on those posts. So I never really pay attention to those posts. I mean, I pay attention, but I don't make any comments. There's no, I don't know, not relevant. So I don't know. You got, I guess we could talk about just college football, future of college football.
I do got a question while we're on here, Spencer. So are we setting a fantasy draft date?
August 22nd.
Ooh,
22nd.
right around the
So
corner.
I'm thinking that should
2
be
weeks away.
a lot. I think we should do a live show for the fantasy draft.
I think that should be the show. Our
Now, is this
draft.
gonna be an allowed get together, or are we gonna have to?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I mean, we are planning on that. We got wrestling that night, from what I hear.
All right, so that week, Les, I want you to make a poll on who's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Will it be Philip Lindsay, or will it be somebody else?
He's already told me that he's keeping Patrick Mahomes. So
I mean, I would sure hope so. Considering he had won the MVP the year before, and somehow he ended up on the free agent market on the draft.
I think that's going to be our craziest show by far. I mean, we're just going to be live streaming from the
Let me just go ahead
the
and
fantasy football draft party.
Let me make this perfectly clear while we are doing this show. Christian McCaffrey is my keep.
I'm still debating. When is the deadline on the keeper?
Probably an hour before the draft starts.
An hour before the draft starts? Ooh, that
so
gives me all
11 o'clock. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm still
I'm contemplating.
I'm contemplating who I want to keep, Derrick Henry or Michael Thomas.
So he's letting Russell Wilson is going free agent this year.
I think he should. You can get comparable quarterbacks.
You can.
I like it.
I'm going a different strategy.
Who was my quarterback last year? I think it was Aaron Rodgers, now that I think about it. Yeah, I definitely needed an upgraded quarterback.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with college football and sports in general. There's still a lot of question marks out there because of COVID. I know that the athletic director – go on. Les.
Oh, I was saying, I thought I didn't know you were done, but no, I mean, the news just gets worse and worse every day. It seems like, players are opting out. I think 66 players have opted out in the NFL. I mean, I know we're specifically talking about college, but, the MAC conference just decided to cancel their season this year. So you're almost expecting the worst at this point. I mean, the best news, I think, is some of the top prospects, like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields have announced that they are 100% playing this year if there is, if we do decide to go on with the season. But, the guys like Micah Parsons who are deciding to opt out, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I understand completely, and I don't fault him one bit. I don't fault anybody who sits out. But as a fan, I really wanted to see Micah Parsons play this year. I love watching him play.
While we're on the topic of college football, let me go ahead and get my little rant out now that we're going on and talking about this. Can we talk about the fact that one of the biggest traditions in college football, the Ohio State-Michigan game, is going to be played in freaking October this year?
Oh, that's just –
why would they do that?
October 24th is the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Why would they do that?
And not in November.
That's just blasphemous. It really is.
That's all in one day. We're supposed to have Louisville, Kentucky, Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Georgia Tech,
Clemson, South Carolina,
Florida.
Florida,
We're not getting those matchups now.
Florida State, UCLA, USC, and we're not even going to get them.
I know the email that we got from our athletic director at the high school basically was just asking our coaching staff questions about what are we going to do in this situation? What are we going to do in that situation? It's just
real quick, while he brought up high school, since we haven't done it yet, let's give a quick shout out to our buddy Jacob Teasley on becoming Southern High School's new soccer coach.
Nice.
So, shout out to
Good
Teasley.
for him. Did he go to Southern or from
No.
the Okolona area?
No.
No.
He's not that far from Southern where his mom lives.
Got it.
But
I think it was more he just
no.
wanted to get into coaching.
Nice.
yeah, he was trying to get a job. I know like Mail and Trinity offered him like assistant jobs, and he was looking for an actual head coaching job. So big shout out to Teasley.
Good for Teasley.
I'm proud of you, Teasley.
Maybe he'll stay off Babylon B now.
He'll be too busy coaching that he can't be reading those, fake news and all that fun stuff.
So
Let's just hope he's not talking politics to his players. I'll be honest, I leave it out of practice, so never brought it up even when they asked me. So
That's I think that's the best policy.
thing
I
they
think
do.
really, it really is. I mean, I'm all for players everyone voicing their opinion, but I mean, I think there's a time and place for different settings like that, I guess, is what I'm trying to look for.
I don't want to be the influential person in that sphere. So there's other
Right.
people
That's more or less what I'm going at. Yeah.
They didn't sign up to hear my political rants.
Hell, I don't sign up for your political rants either, but here you are.
Some of them will probably prefer that I would talk politics instead of say on the line, but such is life.
I didn't sign up for half of your rants, political or not, but I get them whenever.
You keep on inviting me on the store, man, on the show.
The day I got to meet.
Well, I'm talking about at work. Half the time I'm just like, "Hey, Spencer, what's up?" And you're like, "You know what really grinds my gears?" And then just some big rant about something.
Which is not even true. I can barely comprehend what's going on in the morning. I barely say hi to Les in the morning.
Of course, in all fairness, that's more back when we were on PM shift.
That's true. Give you that.
When I got to meet Spencer, it was all because I was in a debate with somebody under Les's post, and all he did was tag Spencer in it, and then I just got the most random stat lines thrown at me.
Well, I got a nice little debate for y'all. So I've been called out in a game of horse by Megan Hardesty, who is a youth counselor, who is a guidance counselor at St. Stephen Martyr Catholic School, and she is calling out me saying that she will beat me in a game of horse. So, given my two co-hosts, who y'all got? I'm not answering because we all know that I'm going to win. So
Did she play basketball before? Did she play basketball before?
At what level, Les?
Yeah. Nothing?
You're asking me. This is you know what I'm going to say. I'm just going to tell you I'm going to win.
No. We're asking, has she played basketball before?
Not organized basketball, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're winning.
Yeah, I got you. But
I'm going to tell you I said that real quick, too. So.
But I will say, though, I need you to video this game or it never happened. So don't come back on the show a week later. Don't come back on the show a week later saying you won if you don't have video evidence.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Of course.
Or else Spencer is claiming fake news.
I just got a text about Donovan Mitchell, though, so.
What about Donovan Mitchell?
I don't know that he's – in case y'all didn't know, he's really good.
He's good. I mean,
apparently he's doing something good right now.
He has been playing well in overtime against the Nuggets. So, but Nikola Jokic has a chance to tie the game again and send it to a double overtime. So,
oh boy! And then the Lakers are on next.
Let's talk about the Nuggets for a second. I'm so happy for Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. He's finally showcasing that potential that we all saw when he was that number one overall player. Well, got moved down to number 2 when certain somebody reclassified, and that was Mr. Marvin Bagley. But that's neither here nor there. But, yeah, we're finally showcasing that elite scorer and athlete that we saw at Nathan Hale High School,
we're
coached by Brandon Roy.
We're showing why he was projected to be the number 1 overall pick at one point in the NBA draft.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Bol as well.
You really didn't answer anything to the offensive woes the Lakers were having earlier this morning. What's your take, Lucas? And what was your take on LeBron's cryptic
See,
message?
when
Was
I
it
saw
more of
that,
a growing?
when
Is
I
it more
saw
of a
that, I
growing or
had to like
just?
actually like go online and see if that was like an actual quote he made. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't want it to be one of those things that somebody posted on one of those random basketball pages that wasn't true or
Sure.
completely took out of context. And
It didn't. It sounds like LeBron, even when you
yes,
even
it
when you
does.
read it.
If you're going off what he said in the past, yes, it does. Um, I think it's just more of. I think the offensive woes are just everybody just trying to get their feet wet again, just trying to get back to it, trying to get back into the swing of things. You know, guys like LeBron and AD, and they've been working this whole time. So
All right.
some people haven't, and you could tell.
True.
And so I think it's just everybody just needing to get back into the swing of things. More. Just KCP and all them being able to find their shot. Guys like Dion Waiters and everything who were still playing. Those guys were still playing because they were still trying to make sure that their spot is reserved going into this bubble. Guys like J.R. Smith that got signed during the bubble process. Trying to make sure. What?
Do you think
Jokic
there
is a
might be?
bucket, dude. He just tied the game again with 3 seconds left, probably to send it to another overtime.
But I think it's just them more so just trying to get their feet wet and trying to get – also when you added guys like J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters, just trying to get used to them playing within the team. And
Do you think there's an issue with any of the players and the rules? You think it's starting to wear on them a bit?
I think
They've
it's
been
starting
there
to get
for
the J.R.
4
Smith
weeks?
and I think it's starting to get the J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters.
Yeah.
When you can't bring gummies and Henny in the bubble,
Hey, you know what Thad Castle always said? You mess with a man's rituals, you mess with the things that get him through the day. Only he said it a lot more emphatic than I did. But anyways, one thing when I've noticed when I'm watching the Lakers play is it looks like, at least from LeBron's standpoint, that LeBron's trying to get everyone else more involved. He, to me, does not look that engaged. But at the same time, you're going to get a more engaged LeBron in the postseason. And to me, he's trying to get everyone else to develop their rhythm before the postseason. That's what it looks like to me.
The way the Lakers are playing right now literally looks like the way the Lakers played the first 5 games of the season at the beginning of the season. Force feed Anthony Davis, get everybody else involved. LeBron doesn't find his rhythm, throughout the game. And then, of course, he ends the nights, 6 of 16 shooting, 6 of 17 shooting, and all this because he's never found his rhythm. I think with the Lakers, what they need to do is, yes, is Anthony Davis your go-to right now? 100%. But they need to find ways to get LeBron going early so he's engaged the entire game. Especially, we all know, you get LeBron going early, all the attention's on LeBron. Now the shooters, KCP, J.R. Smith, Dion Waiters, Kuzma, who has found defense and a jump shot throughout this bubble process. Thank God. You get all these other guys involved. It takes pressure away from Anthony Davis. I think he needs to just get back to he's trying, like you said, to get everybody else involved. And I think he needs to come out with that mentality of, I got to get going early for us to win this game.
Well, to me, LeBron can get himself going. That's not the issue. To me, it looks like it's not that the Lakers are designing plays. I think it's LeBron himself trying to make sure everyone is in it.
Part of me wants to say that he's just saying, all right, we clinched the 1 seed. I don't need to really be doing a whole lot during this 8-game stretch. And then when the playoffs start is when we'll turn this on.
I think LeBron's just confident what he can do in the postseason, just wants to make sure everyone else is ready. That's me, though.
I think by now, I know Spencer's probably going to make some kind of comment. We all know what LeBron is capable of in the playoffs. We know what he's capable of turning into come to the playoffs.
I've seen so much on different sides, so sometimes I don't know what to expect with LeBron. Definitely the potential is there, but I don't know. LeBron definitely always has the potential to go off.
Yeah.
We saw that at firsthand the very first time with 27 straight points against the Pistons in 2007.
Yep.
That was the game for me that really solidified that LeBron is here and he is worth every bit of the hype he received coming into the league. That was the game that just sold it for me. That's still one of the best postseason performances I've ever seen. Just quite, and to do it at 22, and to do it at 22 years old at that.
So I think it's really interesting the way the games are shaping out in the bubble. I think you're gonna have a lot of things that you didn't see when the playoffs come.
It opened up the door for teams like OKC to really have a chance to go far, because when you're not playing in front of a home crowd and other teams' home crowds, the game's different. A lot of teams feed off energy. It's kind of like when we were talking about if college football plays a season this year and they play with no fans. Schools like Notre Dame and LSU could be in trouble because they feed off what those fans do. And so, it opens the door for a lot of different teams like the Jazz, teams like the Thunder, even teams like Miami that feed, that can just, take it right from you because there's no fan energy, there's no nothing.
Definitely. And those teams that you mentioned, they're younger as well. So they won't have to kind of tread through the playoffs like some of the veterans have in the past.
So they won't have to worry about playing a Game 7 on the road,
They'll be in the same environment. Yep.
But in the same situation. So let's take a team like, let's just say Oklahoma City, for instance, and take a guy like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. This is his second year in the league. He made the playoffs last year with the Clippers, so it's a little – but say he goes off in this playoffs, and OKC makes a, let's say, Western Conference semis run, and, Shea Gilgeous has a great playoff run. And now he's like, oh, okay, this is what the playoffs like. And then you go back, let's just say next year, and we go back to regular fans, regular basketball, and you're like, wow, this Game 7 scenario is a little bit different from the one last year.
Yes.
A lot different.
So
especially a Game 7 on the road at that.
Guys it won't hurt the guys like the veterans. I don't think it won't hurt them. But for these younger guys, when we're talking about going forward, especially if you take like a rookie, like a John Morant or, a Zion or anything, if they play a Game 7 and, they get comfortable, with this kind of playoff setting, and then you go next year and you're like, take somebody like John Morant and you're like, wow, last year, Game 7 of this first round, this was quiet. We had a chance, now we're playing Game 7 in the Staples Center or Game 7 in Golden State. And
yep.
So, it'll be interesting to see how this playoffs goes on. That's where it's going. The bubble games are fun. Don't get me wrong. They've been really entertaining to watch for the most part. But
if only they could stop fouling jump shooters, I know I sound just like Jeff Van Gundy on that, but it's the truth.
Dude, the disrespect towards us shooters is ridiculous now. So, people just can't get over the fact they can't shoot as well as us.
They can't.
So, but yeah, like I said, bubble is entertaining. Don't get me wrong, but all right. So, how about a little bit of breaking news here for you, Les? Recruiting. Rocco Spindler, the number 5 ranked offensive guard, chose Notre Dame.
O-lineman U. That's all I got to say. You take some of the top linemen in the NFL, Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin. Notre Dame and Wisconsin and Bama just have a knack for getting offensive linemen to that next level. So I think it's a great move on his part. And
still not as breaking as when we had the Jamal Adams trade in the middle of the show.
That was great. That was awesome.
But yeah, so like I said, bubble games are definitely entertaining. Playoff games will be a lot more interesting.
Very. I would have to agree. But we're getting to that point where we're reaching about the end of the show. But I want to thank everyone who tunes in. But, let us know what you as always, let us know in the comment section what you think. Is Ichiro better than Pete Rose? What do you think about Kenny Payne going to the Knicks? But until next time, I'm Les Abbott.
Matt Spencer. Yep. See you guys.